big story, though, continues to be the Supreme Court of India's landmark decision today on the practice of instant triple talaq, instant divorce as it is practiced in some parts of the Muslim landscape in India. The Supreme Court, in a split verdict, decided that the practice was unconstitutional. The government now has 6 months' time to frame a new law to deal with marriages in Islam. Take a look at this report. The Supreme Court's long-awaited verdict on triple talaq could be a turning point for gender justice and civil rights in India.
It's a good judgment. It's a one step forward for gender justice and gender equality, and it's good for women.
Women's rights campaigners have hailed the court's decision as a historic win.
The religious leadership are totally answerable for this kind of a malpractice, and they should all join hands with the ordinary Muslim women and ordinary Muslim men in celebrating this verdict, rather than continue to play their conservative patriarchal game. Because ordinary Muslims now have seen through this kind of a divisive and this kind of a one-sided and unjust practice.
India is one of a handful of countries where a Muslim man can divorce his wife in minutes by saying the word talaq, meaning divorce, 3 times. Countries such as Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Turkey have banned the controversial practice.
The government went slow. The Congress party was very, very conscious of the sensitivity of the issue and didn't want to create problems. So also, for instance, with tribal custom and tribal traditions, in the Constitution we have said they will be protected, and the religion and the practices of the minorities have been guaranteed in the Constitution by the lawmakers themselves, and therefore one must understand the perspective in which this issue didn't get really resolved.
In India, where Muslims are a minority in a secular country, the matter was subject to heated political debate.
There is so much politics around here, and don't forget, we believe here that we are the custodians of Islam.
In fact, the very practice is un-Islamic. Triple talaq divorce has no mention in Sharia Islamic law or the Quran, even though the practice has existed for decades. Islamic scholars say the Quran clearly spells out how to divorce. It has to be spread over 3 months, allowing a couple time for reflection and reconciliation. The judgment is a huge victory for Muslim women. For decades, they have had to live with the threat of instant divorce dangling over their heads like a sword. Now, no more. Bureau Report, WION. So it's a huge judgment with far-reaching implications, and to discuss it, we're joined by WION's voices spread across the country. Joining me from Bengaluru is my colleague Nishita Virendra. From Mumbai, Pragya Jha. Of course, from Kolkata, we've also got my colleague Pooja Mehta. From the WION newsroom, I'm joined by Jessica Taneja, who's been tracking all the developments from the Supreme Court itself. And in the studio with me is WION's political editor, Kartikeya Sharma. Hi everyone, thanks for being here. It's a big story, and I'm thankful to all of you for taking out the time to sort of weigh in on the implications of this huge decision. I'm going to go across to Kartikeya first. Kartikeya, some would say that this decision has been a long time coming, but the other argument could be that it's a decision whose time has come. Which do you agree with more?
I would say that I would go by the latter. It's a decision whose time has come. Fundamentally, the opinion has changed. Let's switch our clock 30 years back. We had a Prime Minister with 400 plus seats. He had total mandate, both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. And he failed I would say, the women in the Muslim community by actually going against the order of the Supreme Court.
Right.
You could have just not interfered, You could have just gone by the order of the court. Now, from Shah Bano to Saira Bano, it has taken 30 long years. But at least one thing has proved, that where legislature will fail, the court will step in.
Okay. Jessica, does this only pertain to Muslim women though? Isn't this a landmark judgment for gender equality irrespective of religion?
even huge, because remember, we were waiting for this for a very long time. It does not just go back to Saira Bano, it goes back to all the Muslim women who have been waiting for all those years that it will in fact be declared unconstitutional, and now that it has, I think it gives them some sort of a right to equality, right to live, the right to freedom, and of course the court stepping in at this point in time. But what we do know, even if it's declared unconstitutional from here on, it will be tabled in Parliament for codifying further Muslim personal laws, especially when it comes to marriage and divorce. So one will have to wait and see on how that sort of comes around.
Okay, stay with me, Jessica. I want to go across to Nishita now. Nishita, we were talking about the difference between a decision coming too late or a decision whose time has come, and I think your guest, Sultana Begum, is an interesting voice who can weigh in on how opinion changes over time and how that has in many ways impacted what's happened today. Let's hear what she has to say as well.
Absolutely. I'll just quickly toss it across to her. I have with me Ms. Sultana Begum, who's a former bureaucrat and also a former believer in the system of triple talaq. But it was just a few years back that her opinion shifted to going against triple talaq, and she'll tell us why. Ma'am, if you can explain to us that moment when that opinion in your mind shifted from in favor of triple talaq to against it.
See, as a staunch supporter of, follower of Islam and Quran, I'm not an Islamic scholar, just that I'm a believer in Islam. I thought, we will never go against Quran and Islam, which is my strong belief even today. But then I realized, after a discussion with various Islamic scholars and professors of law universities and other places, that in Quran nowhere it is mentioned that triple talaq has to be given at one stretch, and that triple talaq, the talaq by itself, the divorce itself, has to be done into stages. When that is the situation, so hanging on to triple talaq in one go is not a valid reason for a divorce. Now, the question here is not about the triple talaq, it is how the Muslims are viewing it, the Indian Muslims. According to the Act of 1937, it is through the Indian Constitution that the religious minorities follow their own personal law in matters of marriage, divorce, inheritance and custody of children, etc. So, unfortunately, once this body, the power were given to the Muslims to follow, to make their own laws, no law or codification was done by the Muslims themselves. We had an organization of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board constituted in 1973, which unfortunately did not make rules keeping in mind the changes, not according to Islam, but what is not valid, what is redundant, where 26 Islamic countries have banned triple talaq. Why not in India? Do you mean to say that 26 countries including Pakistan who have banned are not Islamic? So, even here, I feel sorry. What the Muslim Personal Law Board should have done by itself today, the Supreme Court has done it. They themselves should have said that this is not a proper system of, though they agree in principle, they say it is sinful, but it is valid. They contradict, it's a very subtle. I was just listening to Mr. Kamal Farooqi, one of the senior members of the Muslim Personal Law Board, just on the Republic TV, his comment, saying that triple talaq is sinful, right, but it is valid. I don't know for a common man which side to go. So the Muslim Personal Law Board should have taken a stand long back, at least when the litigation started, saying that let the Muslims in India not use this system of talaq, whereby a woman will be suddenly abandoned just on the words of talaq, talaq, talaq.
Right.
Since that did not happen, today it has taken a political color as if it's a victory of some political party. If anybody is interested in the social reform of the community, let every woman, every sound Muslim man or non-Muslim man, woman, everybody support the idea of a social reform within the ambit of Islamic law and the Quran, not outside it.
Okay, Nishita, if I can request you to take one more quick question across. If you can just ask her one other thing for me, Nishita, you know, from what I'm gathering from what she just said, ask her, would it be fair to say that this judgment is also then laid bare the way in which religion is often misinterpreted, how tenets are obfuscated by bodies and individuals who claim to be representing the goodwill of an entire community?
Right. Another question to you, Ms. Sultana, that do you feel that something like a triple talaq, one, the court has already termed it un-Islamic, but does it go on to show once again that this is not actually anything to do with Islam? It is how it was interpreted by a few members of the community, and that is what usually happens with such personal laws in any religion.
Nishita, first I disagree with you when you use the word that the Supreme Court held it un-Islamic. Sorry, the Supreme Court never said it un-Islamic, nor will I say it is un-Islamic. Supreme Court, what it meant says, triple talaq was one of, see, the Sharia draws its source from various things. Quran is one of the main source. Like that we have hadith, we have other two forms. So in one of the hadith, somewhere down the line, during the time of the Arabs that time, triple talaq was one of the instance, but which was strongly condemned by the people then itself. So triple talaq is not un-Islamic, but it is not to be followed, it is not necessary. There are so many things which are weak in its nature, which it should be condemned and not to be followed. By not following triple talaq, we are not losing our religious identity, or we are not going to be against Islam. It's not we are going to be against the Quran. Any strong believer, including me, nobody in the country or the world around will ever expect, will say that we will not follow the Quran or the Sharia.
That's a very interesting point that you're presenting, Ms. Begum. Both Pragya, Pooja and Revati is also on the conversation. Please stay patient. Just one sec. I want to go across to Jessica. Jessica, but am I not wrong am I not correct when I say that the court did indeed say that the practice of instant triple talaq is un-Islamic?
Absolutely, Aisha. That is exactly what I was getting at. They said that the talaq is in fact un-Islamic. It's not part of the Holy Quran. That is exactly what Justice Joseph Curran today said inside the court. I am sorry to have to refute her point here, but that is exactly what was said by the Supreme Court. So one has to go with what they said. They said it is un-Islamic, it is not part of the Quran, and it should be dealt separately. In fact, we're going to sort of quash it in totality. So I would, humbly disagree with what she said. The Supreme Court has made it very clear. In fact, if you're looking at the majority judgment, they have said that it is un-Islamic and this is a practice that needs to go away.
All right, let me go across to my colleague Pragya Jha, who's joining in from Mumbai. Pragya, first, thanks for being so patient. But, this conversation obviously has undertones of so many different aspects that deal with India as a young and growing democracy, as a secular nation. And I think this, in many ways, indicates that, as Karthik was saying, that the time had come for this decision to come through. You've spoken to a few people and tried to gauge the reaction on the Supreme Court's decision. What has been the overwhelming response that you've gotten? One of satisfaction or dissatisfaction?
That's right, Aisha. So I've been in touch with Noor Jahan Safia Niaz, who is the, the chief of the Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan here in Mumbai. And she says that we're very happy with the judgment that has come out today. And she says that, as soon as the, courts can and the parliament can legislate over this and, pass a law which says that triple talaq is unconstitutional, un-Islamic, the happier we are. She says that nowhere in the Quran is there a mention that a woman can so miserably and mercilessly, be taken off the contract of marriage by just pronouncing talaq thrice. And she says that, we've read the Quran, we Muslim women have read the Quran, and it says that nowhere can the husband say that, I disown you, or from today the marriage is over, only just, merely saying talaq thrice. So she says that those people, those who say that they're the guardians of the Quran have actually misled the Muslim women. And they have also said that, following Sharia, this is part of the Sharia, but she says that no law or nothing in the religious books ever would take away the rights of women, and that's what the government has also been saying, that triple talaq, anything that brings about gender equality, is what is written in the Quran and is what is written in the Constitution. So Noor Jahan also goes on to say that putting the Constitution or the Quran ahead of the Constitution and putting a hierarchy like that in place is not needed at all. In fact, we don't need to do that. Not hierarchies at every place do not work, and the Constitution itself guarantees rights, equality for men and women, and so does the Quran. No religious book ever would say that put women down and bring up the morale of a man by just pronouncing talaq thrice. And I've also been in touch with Zafar Abdullani, who is the member of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board today. He's the general secretary there and an executive member. He went on to say that the Sharia, now today what we've started doing is that we've started telling the imams in the mosques to read out the code of conduct or the Sharia. The code of conduct defines how a man can give talaq to a woman. So he goes on to justify that there are certain tenets which if you follow, you can then give talaq to a woman. So when these things come out, these women have to say, so only a man has got the right to pronounce talaq. And when I questioned him that does a woman in Islam enjoy similar rights? Right. He was silent and he said no. Something like that has not
it's very
been yet
interesting that you bring that up,
so
because
really
some of the comments that we've heard, of course, are that Islam does give the women to the right to divorce as well. However, there are certain tenets that need to be followed. It is not arbitrary, which has been really speaking the great argument against instant triple talaq. Pooja Mehta, my colleague from Kolkata, also with us on the broadcast. Pooja, in many ways, everyone is talking simply about Muslim women repeatedly, but this goes beyond Muslim women. This also demonstrates in many ways gender equality being considered by the highest body when it comes to the judiciary in India. What is the reaction there in Kolkata? One of the petitioners, in fact, also from West Bengal. So I suppose this story has gained a lot of traction there in West Bengal as well.
Well, Aisha, I'm joining you live from Kolkata, and West Bengal has a sizable chunk of the Muslim community. In fact, one of the petitioners, Ishrat Jahan, is from Howrah. In fact, we spoke to her in the morning. In fact, I spoke to a lot of women from the Muslim community since morning. Two important points I'll make since we were talking about gender equality. A lot of women, let me tell you, there are mixed reactions among the women. There is a section among the women who believe and who view the triple talaq from the point of view of the religion and not from the point of view of gender equality. They are given to believe that it is a part of their holy book Quran and it is a part of the Sharia law. And second important point I want to make is that there is very little clarity on the triple talaq, because the moment I started cross-questioning these women that what is Sharia law, if triple talaq is a part of the Sharia law, they couldn't answer. But there are some women who say that generations after generations, be it their fathers, their brothers, their uncles, they are conditioning their women folk, be it their mothers, sisters, daughters, in a manner, and they are given to believe that triple talaq is a part of the Sharia law, it is a part of the Holy Quran. Right. So this is a very important point I'm trying to make, that there is very little clarity as far as triple talaq is concerned.
Absolutely.
And I'm also being joined by a lot of women here. Let's go across to them and ask them.
Sure, Pooja.
And let's listen into what they have to say. आज तो triple talaq जो Supreme Court है. Yes, Aisha.
Go ahead, Pooja. Very quickly, I want to bring Revati into the conversation as well. You can take one question across to one of those women who is joining you there in Kolkata.
आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये कह दिया कि इंस्टेंट तलाक जो है, जो आप मुंह ज़बानी बोल देते हैं या व्हाट्सएप मैसेज से आप बोल देते हैं, इसको अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल करार दिया गया है. आपको लगता है ये सही है या गलत है? ये
नहीं, ये गलत है.
तो कोई प्रोसेस होती है ट्रिपल तलाक के लिए जिसे फॉलो करना चाहिए? क्या प्रोसेस होती है?
इस तरीका से हम लोगों का मतलब ये होता है ना, निकाह जैसा होता है, जिस तरीका से 5 आदमी बैठ के रहता है और हम लोग का काजी साहब बैठ के रहता है. अगर उसी तरीका से मतलब ये हो तब तो ये बात मतलब कुछ है ही नहीं है. लेकिन ये क्या है, अगर मतलब ये रिकिम का मतलब ये मोमिन रहेगा तब तो मतलब यानी कि तलाक का नाम पर कुछ वजन ही नहीं रहेगा.
Right. So Aisha, in brief, I would just like to tell you that, you know, they are saying that there is a process as far as the triple talaq is concerned, which it needs to be followed. However, it is openly flouted, just as the nikah is a process where there are people around, there is a qazi. Similarly, triple talaq also involves a qazi and some other people, and there is a process which needs to be followed. And all these women around me are welcoming this decision by the Supreme Court. Aisha?
Interesting comments there. Thanks, Pooja, for that. But I think, again, what the lady you spoke with brings up is an interesting point, something that even Asaduddin Owaisi referred to, saying that it's not just about the Supreme Court making that decision, it's also about how exactly it's going to be implemented on the ground. Let me go across to my colleague Revathi Rajivan, who's joining us on Chennai for a story other than AIADMK. Revathi, it's such a nice and a fresh change to talk to you about something else. Tell us, what is the reaction been in Chennai to this landmark decision?
Well, Aisha, we've seen a lot of activists, lawyers and women who are coming out and applauding this verdict of the Supreme Court. But I did speak to a lot of women on the ground, on the grassroots level, women who are really affected by this triple talaq. And there is a sense of fear, you know, for them to actually speak out on something that they believe was a part of Islam, very much a part of Islam. So they're scared as to whether when they speak against triple talaq, will they be also speaking against the religion itself. It has been so much a part and parcel of their lives and the way of life that they have been following. So, you know, there is that sort of hesitant, you know, behavior that I saw from these women saying that we do not have a clarity on what exactly this means. We don't know what the Waqf board wants to say. We don't know what the mosque committee wants to say. So they are relying on a lot of boards and authorities that they have been following all this while, even as the Supreme Court says triple talaq is unconstitutional. I did personally speak to women who have been talaqed over WhatsApp by their husbands who are abroad just 3 to 4 months after their marriage. Just sending 3 messages, talaq, 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 and saying that I'm done with you. I'm not interested in taking forward this marriage again. So a huge relief for women like that, but they too want to be left alone, and you know they are moving on in their lives as well. But there is that fear amongst these women as to whether you know, if they speak against this, they will be speaking against religion as well.
Right.
But Aisha, most importantly, let me conclude that this one particular judgment perhaps will be the benchmark for several other judgments as well, which is very closely related and links to something very similar. For example, the Sabarimala temple issue in Kerala, where there is a very similar case of faith and religion versus gender equality. Women are not allowed to enter into Sabarimala temple, and that is a case in consideration with the Supreme Court. So this definitely has been a welcoming verdict for the people as far as gender rights are concerned, gender equality is concerned. But whether this will be expanded to other areas as well, other religions as well, whether the same sort of a logic will be followed by the Supreme Court in giving verdicts in those cases as well, is something that people are looking forward to, Aisha.
Absolutely, and you and me included in that, I'm sure. And I mean, I'm going to have to wrap up this discussion, but I think what we've been able to establish quite clearly through our conversations with each of you is that this may have well been a decision benefiting the Muslim women at this point in time, but the implications are far larger when it comes to gender equality in India in the year 2017. In fact, this is the 21st century. There's so much more to be done, if you ask me. But on that note, thanks everyone. Kartikeya Sharma here in the studio with me, Revathi Rajivan, Pooja Mehta, Pragya Jha and Nishchita Virendra, and of course myself. I think I didn't include myself in that list. Thanks guys for joining us here on the broadcast. It's a wrap on this edition of the newscast. More news on the other side. Stay with us.